The desert was supposed to be quiet that evening, just the distant hum of cicadas, the brush of hot wind across the yucca shrubs, and the fading glow of sunset rolling across the mesas. But for Caleb Hart, a seasoned cowboy known for his calm, deliberate nature, peace was an unfamiliar visitor. He had spent months driving cattle, months sleeping under the stars, and months trying to forget the life he left behind his broken engagement, his father's death, and the ranch he couldn't bear to stay on anymore. He rode not to reach anywhere, but to outrun the ache in his chest. But fate had a habit of ambushing when least expected as he crossed a narrow ridge near Copper Canyon. His horse lifted its head, ears pricked. Caleb slowed, hand brushing the butt of his revolver. In the valley below, he spotted a dark shape lying near a cluster of rocks. At first, he thought it might be a mountain lion or someone injured on the trail. But as he approached, he realized it was a woman unconscious, bleeding, and clearly attacked. She was Apache. Her long black hair was matted with dust. Her deerskin dress was torn, and an arrow wound burned angry red along her side. Her wrists bore signs of rope burns. Someone had captured her, then abandoned her to die. Caleb dismounted instantly. He had been raised to respect every person, every culture, but rescuing an Apache woman was dangerous. It could ignite conflict, be misinterpreted by tribal warriors or settlers alike. But leaving her would be unthinkable. Caleb knelt beside her. She stirred, whispering something in Apache he didn't understand. Her voice was soft, frightened, but determined. Even in her weakness, there was fire inside her. He tore cloth from his shirt, pressed it to her wound, and whispered, "Easy now. You're safe. I got you." When he lifted her in his arms, he realized she was lighter than she looked, but strong, her muscles lean and shaped by a life of riding, hunting, surviving. She trembled, though she tried not to. He mounted his horse, holding her close against him. At that moment, he wasn't just carrying an injured stranger. He was carrying the spark of a story neither of them yet understood. As they rode, she drifted in and out of consciousness. Once she managed to open her eyes, dark, deep, and filled with a mixture of fear and pride. She studied him as though assessing whether he was an enemy or a miracle. "My name's Caleb," he said softly. "Don't worry. I ain't gonna hurt you." She whispered a word, her name, but the wind swept it away. Night fell by the time they reached an abandoned line shack. Caleb laid her on a bedroll, lit a lantern, and cleaned her wound. She bit down on her leather wrist strap to keep from crying out. Even half alive, she refused to show weakness. When he finished, she finally spoke in broken English. "You saved me." "Anyone would have," he replied. She shook her head weakly. "No many men. Kill Apache. You stop. You help." Caleb didn't know what to say. He only handed her water, watching the trust slowly forming in her eyes, a fragile thread. But real. She told him her name, Nara. Explained that she had been taken by a group of outlaw hunters who sought to trade Apache captives for reward money. She escaped, but they shot her as she fled, and now they were tracking her. Caleb's jaw tightened. "They'll have to go through me first." Nara looked at him long and silently, then whispered, "You risk your life." "For me," Caleb shrugged, trying to hide the pull he felt toward her. Someone had to. But inside, something shifted. He didn't just want to save her. He wanted to protect her. He wanted to understand her. He wanted more. They spent the night in uneasy peace. Nara slept curled against the wall, her breathing soft and shallow. Caleb sat by the doorway, gun in hand, keeping watch. He knew the danger wasn't just the outlaws. If her tribe found them together, they might think he kidnapped her. If his own people found him protecting an Apache woman, he'd be judged a traitor, but none of that mattered now. When dawn painted the sky gold, Caleb looked at Nara and felt the first spark of something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years. Hope, not because he thought he could win her heart, but because for the first time in a long time, he felt like a man capable of doing something good, something meaningful, something that wasn't just drifting through life, saving. Nara wasn't just an act of compassion. It was the beginning of healing a wounded cowboy soul, and though neither of them knew it yet, it was the beginning of a bond that would challenge every rule, every border, and every fear, shaping a love story carved into the wild heart of the frontier. Morning in the desert came crisp and pale, stretching long rays of sunlight across the abandoned shack. Caleb had barely slept. He'd spent most of the night listening for hoofbeats, for rustling brush, for the unmistakable sound of danger drawing near. But just before dawn, when the stars were fading into a soft bluish haze, his attention shifted from the world outside to the quiet breathing of the woman inside, Nara. The Apache beauty who had collapsed in his path looked different in the morning light. Not weaker, though she was pale and feverish, but clearer. More real. Not a stranger fate had thrown into his arms, but someone whose presence demanded understanding. When she stirred, Caleb rose from his post. Her eyes blinked open slowly, focusing first on the ceiling, then on him. For a second, confusion tightened her features, fear flashing across her face before she remembered where she was. "You stayed awake all night," she whispered. Caleb shrugged, trying to sound casual. "Wasn't tired. That is lie." Her voice was soft, but there was a spark of stubborn truth-telling in it that made him nearly smile. He helped her sit up, easing a blanket around her shoulders. She winced at the pain from the arrow wound, but again no complaint. Apache women, Caleb thought, were forged from fire and bone. "Eat something," he said, offering a piece of dried jerky and a small tin cup of water warm near the lantern. "You'll need strength. We've got a long day ahead." She accepted the water but hesitated with the food. After a long pause, she said quietly, "You share with me, even though you owe me nothing." "There's no owing when someone's hurt," Caleb answered. "There's just doing what's right." She studied him with those dark, intelligent eyes. He felt like she was reading his thoughts, measuring the weight of his soul. Cultural distance as she ate, Nara spoke in slow, careful English. She told him she belonged to the White Hawk Band, a respected Apache group that lived between the mountains and the river. She was the daughter of Lohan, a skilled hunter known not for his strength, but for his wisdom. Her mother had died 2 winters ago. Nara was beloved among her people, not only because she was beautiful, but because she was brave, clever, and compassionate. Caleb shared only small details about himself. He didn't mind talking, but he feared overwhelming her. He mentioned growing up on a cattle ranch, learning to rope before he could write his own name, losing his father to illness. He didn't mention the fiancée who left him. That wound sat too deep, too fresh. Cowboys and Apache? Nara murmured. They do not sit together. They do not share stories. They do not trust. Caleb shrugged. Seems foolish to me. Why? Because at the end of the day, pain's the same. Loss is the same. Love is the same. Doesn't matter what side of a line you're born on. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said softly, "You speak like a man whose heart has been broken." Her words felt like a blade sliding between his ribs, not cruel, not intentional, but deeply true. He looked away. "And what about yours?" he asked gently. "Ever had your heart broken?" Instead of answering, she touched the arrow wound near her ribs. "Only my body has been wounded. My heart." She hesitated. "My heart belongs to my people. My father says love makes warriors weak. You believe that?" Nara's eyes softened. "I do not know. Perhaps someday I will learn." Caleb didn't push. Something told him that Nara didn't give trust easily, and whatever trust she did give, she gave wholly. The clash of worlds begins as the morning wore on. Caleb helped her to her feet. They needed to travel. The outlaw hunters were still searching, and Nara was too injured to protect herself. "We'll ride slow," he told her. "There's a creek about 5 miles east. Clean water, good hiding. You will take me to my people?" She asked. He hesitated. "Yes, but not yet." Her eyes narrowed. "Why not?" "Because if we ride straight to them now, they might think I'm the one who hurt you." Nara opened her mouth and closed it. She knew he was right to Apache warriors. A cowboy found with an injured Apache woman was more threat than ally. Nara tried to stand without assistance but faltered. Caleb caught her before she fell. She stiffened instantly. Pride warring with pain. "You don't gotta pretend you're made of iron," Caleb said softly. "Apache women do not show weakness," she replied through clenched teeth. "I ain't askin you to be weak. I'm askin you to let me help." When she finally relaxed just enough for him to support her, he felt a surge of something warm and protective. Not pity. Not duty. Something deeper. First sparks of understanding once mounted, Nara sat in front of him on the saddle, leaning against his chest only when absolutely necessary. Caleb kept one arm around her to steady her and held the reins with the other. For hours they rode without speaking. But silence between them wasn't empty. It was awareness. It was the beginning of connection. At the creek, Caleb helped her wash the wound. She hissed at the pain, gripping his forearm so tightly he could feel her strength. He kept his touch gentle, careful not to invade her space. "You are very different from the men of your people," she said quietly when the worst of the pain eased. He snorted. "That good or bad?" "I do not know yet." He laughed. "Fair enough, but—" She tilted her head, studying him again. "You are kind." Caleb felt warmth crawl up the back of his neck. "Just trying to make sure you stay alive." Her lips curved in the smallest hint of a smile. "Then you will succeed." A moment that changes something. While she rested, Caleb gathered wood and set up a small protective circle of stones. The desert was always watching, always hungry for the weak, the wounded, the lost. He wouldn't let it take her. When she finally drifted asleep, Caleb sat nearby, watching the wind brush loose strands of her hair across her face. Without thinking, he reached out and gently tucked them behind her ear. She stirred and her hand shot out, gripping his wrist. Their eyes met. Neither spoke. Neither moved. The connection between them felt electric, dangerous, undeniable, and far too intimate for two people who barely knew each other. Slowly Nara released his wrist. Her eyes softened before she turned away, pretending to sleep again, but Caleb saw the truth in that brief glance. She trusted him, not completely. Not blindly, but enough to let him in a little, enough to allow him to matter. The road ahead. By late afternoon, clouds gathered over the desert, a rare promise of rain. Caleb knew they needed shelter again before nightfall. He saddled the horse, and this time, Nara didn't protest when he helped her mount. As they rode off, she leaned just an inch into him. He didn't comment, but inwardly something shifted. Something deep. Not love. Not yet, but the unmistakable beginning of it. A cowboy who thought he'd lost the ability to feel anything, and an Apache woman who had learned her whole life that trust was dangerous. Two worlds didn't just collide that day. They intertwined, quietly, slowly, unstoppably. Dusk settled over the desert in long strokes of red and violet. The air buzzed with the tense kind of silence that always came before something dangerous. Caleb felt it first, not in the sound of horses, not in the whisper of footsteps, but in the tightening of his instincts. A cowboy who lived too long in the wilderness developed an animal sense for danger, and Caleb's senses were screaming across the fire. Nara sat with her injured side wrapped tightly in clean cloth, her posture straight despite the pain. She had recovered enough strength to hold herself proudly again, but not enough to fight. That alone made Caleb uneasy. She looked up when she noticed his shoulders stiffen. "What is wrong?" she asked sharply. Caleb didn't answer immediately. His eyes swept across the horizon, scanning the darkening ridges. "We might have company." Nara followed his gaze. "My people?" He shook his head slowly. "No, something tells me it ain't the friendly kind." Just then, a distant thud echoed through the canyon's hoofs. Several of them. Moving in formation, Nara's breath hitched. Her eyes hardened into sharp, flint-like focus. "The men who took me," she whispered. "They ride with heavy boots. They do not move like warriors." Caleb's jaw clenched. Outlaw hunters. The same men who had kidnapped her for ransom or reward money. The same men who shot her when she tried to escape. Men who would kill Caleb once they saw him as an obstacle and drag Nara back like she was hunted game. "We need to move," he said, extinguishing the fire instantly with a sweep of dirt. "Now, the desert becomes a hunting ground." Caleb helped Nara onto the horse. She gritted her teeth and clutched the saddle horn, refusing to show weakness. Her pride was both admirable and terrifying because the pain was clearly burning through her. And their lives depended on speed. They rode toward the cliffs, heading for a narrow ravine where the horse's tracks would be hard to follow. Behind them, the hoofbeats multiplied. Closer, faster, hungry. "How many?" Caleb asked. Nara closed her eyes, listening the way only someone trained in wilderness survival could. "4, maybe 5. They ride fast, angry." Caleb swore under his breath. Outnumbered, outgunned, and carrying an injured woman, but he'd be damned if he let anyone touch her again. Warning from the wind as they reached the ravine. The horse stumbled slightly. Nara inhaled sharply as the movement jostled her wound. "You hold on," Caleb murmured, his arm tightening around her. "Ain't nobody tacking you again." "They will kill you," she said softly, almost sadly. "They killed many Apache. They will not spare you." Caleb gave a humorless chuckle. "I ain't much fond of dying, sweetheart. So I'll make sure it don't happen tonight." There it was, a brief flicker in her expression. Not amusement. Not irritation. Concern. For him. The first shot, the crack of a rifle, split the air. A bullet slammed into the rocks inches above their heads, sending shards flying. Nara flinched. Caleb immediately leaned down low over the saddle, shielding her with his own body. "Hang on." The horse surged forward, hooves pounding against the sandstone. Behind them, a voice shouted, "Stop that cowboy! Bring the girl back alive." The outlaws were close enough now for Caleb to hear them clearly, close enough for Nara to recognize the men who had tied her, mocked her, and discussed her price like she was livestock. Her hand trembled against his arm, not from fear, but rage. Caleb felt it through her touch. It burned hotter than her fever, hotter than the desert wind. "You want to fight," he said quietly. "Yes," she breathed. "I want to fight, but you can't." He wasn't scolding, he was mourning the truth. "You're hurt too bad." Her jaw tightened. She hated it. Hated being vulnerable. Hated needing him, but she didn't argue. That meant she trusted him to protect her. Cornered at the cliffs, the ravine walls narrowed until they reached a towering rock ledge. There was only one way out, up the steep, jagged path that snaked along the cliffside. "We climb," Caleb said. He helped Nara down from the saddle. She wobbled, nearly collapsing, but grabbed onto him. He supported her with one arm while leading the horse with the other. Halfway up, hoofbeats thundered behind them. "They come," Nara whispered. "I know." She looked up at him, eyes sharp. "You cannot fight 5 alone." "Didn't say I was going to fight fair." He guided her to a shallow alcove in the rocks. "You stay here. Don't move." Her fingers tightened around his wrist. "Do not die," she ordered, as if she had the right to command him. Caleb smiled softly. "I wasn't planning on it." Cowboy versus outlaws just as he stepped away. The first outlaw appeared at the bottom of the path, rifle raised. Caleb fired first. The outlaw stumbled back, yelling as the bullet tore through his shoulder. Two more men emerged behind him, shouting curses, returning fire. Caleb jumped behind a boulder, loading quickly. He didn't need to kill them. Scaring them off or injuring them would be enough. Killing might escalate things with the Apaches later, but the outlaws weren't thinking logically. That girl is worth good money. Bring her back. Their greed was louder than their fear. Caleb shot again, hitting the second man's rifle, knocking it from his grip. The others returned fire, bullets ricocheting off the rocks, dust flying. He was outnumbered, but they were reckless. And Caleb? He was fighting for someone he could not afford to lose. Nara's strength, hidden in the alcove. Nara fought her own battle against dizziness, against pain, against helplessness. She pressed her palm to the rock, steadying herself. Every muscle in her body screamed. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. She heard Caleb shout, heard the outlaws laugh, heard bullets striking stone. Her people believed a warrior should die with a weapon in hand. Caleb had given his everything for her. She couldn't just sit and wait, using the wall for balance. She stood and scanned the ground below. One outlaw was climbing up the side path quietly, away from the fight coming straight for her. Nara's breath froze. He hadn't seen her yet, but he would. She looked around desperately, then spotted a broken spear tip lying in the sand near the alcove. Left by some traveler long ago. She grabbed it. The turning point, the outlaw climbed higher, higher. His hand reached for the edge of the alcove. Nara waited, silent, perfectly still, like a mountain cat poised to strike. When his head rose into view, she drove the broken spear forward with all the strength she had left. The outlaw screamed, falling backward down the rocky slope. Caleb heard it and whipped around in time to see Nara leaning against the wall, panting, wounded but fierce. Their eyes met across the distances, wide with shock, hers blazing with defiance. She had saved herself. Saved him, too. Retreat. The remaining outlaws, now injured and panicked, called off the chase. "We'll come back for her," one shouted as they fled. "She ain't worth dying for." Their hoofbeats faded into the distance. Caleb finally allowed himself to breathe. He ran to Nara, grabbing her shoulders. "Are you hurt worse? Tell me the truth." She shook her head slowly. "I am. Alive." "You ain't just alive," he said, voice thick. "You're incredible." Her breath trembled, not from pain this time, but emotion. "You protected me, and I protected you." Caleb brushed a strand of hair from her face, fingers lingering a little too long. Neither of them pulled away. "No more running tonight," he murmured. "We'll rest here, together." And as the sky darkened, something profound settled between them, something born from battle, sacrifice, and the raw honesty of survival. Not love yet, but the fire of it. Burning slow, burning deep, burning towards something neither could stop now. Morning arrived, dressed in the soft gray of an overcast desert sky. The storm clouds from the night before had vanished, but the cool air lingered, a rare mercy in the unforgiving region. Caleb checked Nara's wound as gently as he could. Though she still winced, "You're burning up," he muttered, touching her forehead. "I am fine," she replied automatically, too quickly. She wasn't fine. The fever was climbing, her skin warm and her breath uneven. They couldn't hide in the cliffs anymore. They needed help. And there was only one place where Nara could heal safely, her tribe. Caleb helped her mount the horse again, supporting her when her strength faltered. As they rode out of the ravine, he felt her slump lightly against his chest. She didn't have the energy to pretend anymore. "Stay awake," he whispered. She mumbled something in Apache too soft for him to understand, but her hand clutched his coat tightly. He nudged the horse forward, praying to every spirit of the desert he'd ever heard of that they'd make it in time. Entering Apache territory by late afternoon, they reached a rocky plain dotted with mesquite trees. Smoke rose faintly in the distance. Apache campfires. Nara stirred. "Stop," she whispered. "Ride no further." Caleb slowed the horse. "Why?" "We need your people." "Yes," she said weakly, "but they must see that you do not sneak. If they find you deeper inside our land, they will kill you before you speak." Caleb swallowed hard. "All right. We'll wait right here." He dismounted and helped her down. She tried to stand on her own, but her legs buckled. Caleb caught her before she hit the ground. "You're not doing this alone," he said firmly, but she pressed her hand to his chest. "I must walk. My people must see me standing, not being carried like a helpless child." He hesitated. Then he nodded, supporting her lightly, just enough that she could pretend to stand on her own. They walked toward a ridge. Nara cupped her hands around her mouth and called out in her native tongue, "Dine! Shike!" I return. The desert answered with silence, then a rustle. A shadow. A figure. One Apache warrior appeared. Then another. Then 5. Then 12. In seconds, the ridge was lined with armed men, bows drawn, rifles raised, faces unreadable. Caleb felt his pulse race. This was the moment every settler feared, surrounded by Apache warriors on their own land. One wrong move, and he wouldn't live long enough to regret it, but he kept his hands where they could see them. Nara stepped forward, leaning heavily on him despite her effort to hide it. The warriors murmured among themselves, shock, relief, anger, confusion. Finally, one man strode down the ridge, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing bone jewelry and a long braid. His expression was carved from stone. "Nara," he said in Apache, voice low and trembling. "You live." Nara's lips trembled just slightly. "Yes, father, I live." Caleb's heart thudded. This was Lohin, the wise hunter, her father, and he was staring at Caleb with a gaze that could cut straight through bone. "Who is this cowboy?" Lohin demanded, "and why does he touch my daughter?" Accusation. Caleb slowly lifted his hands away from Nara and stepped back. "Sir, I didn't mean," but Lohin cut him off. "Cowboys took our land. Cowboys kill Apache. Cowboys steal our daughters. Why should I believe you are different?" His English was impeccable, sharp, controlled, too controlled. Nara pushed forward, staggering. Caleb reached to steady her, but she didn't allow it this time. She needed to face her father alone. "Father," she said, her voice thin but determined, "this man saved me. He risked his life to protect me. He fought the outlaws who captured me. He did not harm me." Lowen's jaw tightened. "Whose arrow did this?" He pointed to her bandaged side. "The outlaws," Nara answered. "And who tended you? Who touched you?" Nara hesitated, because the truth could be misinterpreted. "He did," she said finally, "only to save my life." The warriors shifted, some muttering darkly. Lohin turned to Caleb. "You entered our land. You touched my daughter. You carried her. You fought for her. You know the laws of the Apache?" Caleb swallowed. "I know some." "Then you know," Lohin said quietly, "that a man does not touch an Apache woman, especially a woman of my family, unless he intends to bind his spirit to hers." Caleb's breath froze. He hadn't known that. Not in that way, but Nara suddenly looked away, cheeks flushing. She knew. She probably knew the moment Caleb lifted her onto his horse. Caleb cleared his throat. Sir, I didn't mean any disrespect. You saved her, Lohin interrupted. For that, you are owed gratitude. Caleb felt a sigh of relief begin to form. But, Lohin continued, you also touched her. Many times. You held her body to yours. You slept beside her. You protected her as if she were your wife. The relief evaporated instantly. That means, Lohin declared, your fate must be judged. The circle of judgment the tribe led them into camp. Women came to support Nara, guiding her into a tent to be treated by the healers. Nara looked back once eyes wide, fearful not for herself, but for Caleb. He understood. He was the one in danger now. He was taken to the center of camp, where a circle was drawn in the dirt. Warriors gathered around. Elders approached and sat. Lohin stood at the head of the circle, holding a ceremonial spear carved with symbols older than any cowboy map. Caleb stood, alone. Lohin pointed the spear at him. Cowboy, you will speak. Why did you save my daughter? Why did you hold her? Why did you fight for her? Caleb met his gaze. Because it was right. That is not enough. Caleb took a breath. Because she needed help. Because she was alone. Because she was hurt. Because I couldn't leave her. Why? Caleb hesitated. The truth rose inside him like a storm. Because she mattered, he said quietly. The circle murmured. Lohin's eyes narrowed. Does she matter more than your own safety? More than your own people? Caleb didn't look away. Yes. Silence rippled across the camp. Then Lohin spoke again, voice heavy. A man who saves a woman may be a hero. A man who fights for a woman may be a fool. But a man who risks death for a woman from another world, he paused, is something we cannot ignore. He stepped into the circle. Cowboy Caleb Hart, you have two choices. Caleb straightened. You may leave this place and never return. You will live, but you will never see Nara again. Caleb's stomach twisted. Or, Lohin continued, you may stay and accept judgment. Your life will be bound by Apache law. Your fate decided by our traditions. And the risk of death is great. Caleb's heart pounded. Escape. Safety. Forget Nara forever or stay. Face judgment. Risk everything. He looked toward the tent where Nara had disappeared. Her voice echoed in his memory. You protected me, and I protected you. He turned back to Lohin. I'll stay, Caleb said quietly. Judge me. A gasp swept through the crowd. Lohin stared at him for a long moment. Then your life, he said, is no longer your own. And in that instant, the cowboy who had saved the Apache beauty realized he wasn't just fighting outlaws anymore. He was fighting destiny. Ayanna and Colt survived the ambush that nearly took both their lives, but nothing truly returns to peace. The land still trembles with tension. Settlers whisper, soldiers are restless. And Apache warriors refuse to forget that a woman of their people walked beside a cowboy. Word spreads quickly. A cowboy risked his life for an Apache woman. Some call Colt reckless. Some call him a traitor. Others say he's bewitched. Ayanna senses the danger around him and feels guilt crushing her chest. Colt sees that she has become a woman caught between worlds, no longer fully accepted by her own people, nor welcomed among his. That realization deepens his resolve. He will protect her, even if it costs everything. The White Town demands answers. When Colt brings Ayanna into town, the reaction is instant. Doors close. Mothers pull children aside. Men mutter threats. At the sheriff's office, Colt is summoned. The sheriff's voice is cold, heavy with fear and prejudice. Colt, for the safety of everyone here, the Apache girl has to leave. Colt's jaw tightens. For years he respected the law of this town. But now, I won't hand her over to anyone. The sheriff warns him. He could lose his land, his reputation, even his freedom. Colt walks out without answering. Ayanna waits outside, tense. When she sees the fire in his eyes, she knows. He just chose her over the world he grew up in. It breaks her heart and binds her to him even more. The Apache Nation gives its own verdict weeks later. An Apache scout finds Ayanna. She must return to the tribal council. Colt insists on going with her. She refuses. This is her burden. He watches her disappear into the desert. Feeling powerless. At the Apache camp, Ayanna stands before the elders. Some accuse her of betraying her blood. Others say she should be welcomed back. The chief stares at her, eyes sharp as flint. You walked with a white man? He fought for you. You slept under his protection. Do you deny it? Ayanna shakes her head. The council murmurs angrily. Then the chief asks the question that decides everything. Do you love this cowboy? The air freezes. Ayanna trembles. But she lifts her chin. Yes, and I will not deny it. A storm of voices erupts. But the chief raises his hand and the fury quiets. Finally he speaks. If love is your truth, then walk your own path. You may leave freely, but from this day on you walk without the protection of this nation. It is not exile. It is not acceptance. It is something in between, and it hurts more than either extreme. Ayanna walks away with tears burning her cheeks. Two worlds reject them. Colt waits where the desert meets the hills. When he sees Ayanna returning alone, shoulders heavy with sorrow, his heart twists. He runs to her. She collapses into his arms. I am no longer a daughter of the people, she whispers. Colt cups her face gently. You're not alone. You'll never be alone again. But both of them know a hard truth. They no longer belong to the world of settlers or the world of Apaches. They only have each other. That realization brings both fear and incredible freedom. The final sacrifice. Colt leaves his old life behind. They return to Colt's ranch. But trouble follows. Men from town ride by at night. Shots echo in the distance. Threats appear carved into his barn door. Colt understands. As long as he stays here, Ayanna is in danger. He holds her hands. No land is worth more than your life. Ayanna cries, begging him not to give up everything for her. But Colt has already made his decision. The next day, he sells the ranch. Every board, every fence, every memory of the family that raised him. Ayanna falls to her knees when she hears the news. She feels responsible for tearing his life apart, but Colt kneels beside her, lifts her chin, and says the words that close the circle. My home wasn't this ranch. My home became you the night I carried you out of that canyon. Ayanna cries in his arms. But this time it is from love, not sorrow. A new beginning in a land untouched. They travel deep into the mountains, far from soldiers, settlers, and warriors. In a quiet valley untouched by conflict, Colt builds a small cabin. Ayanna gathers herbs, stones, and feathers, decorating the doorway with symbols that represent protection and unity. Their new life is humble, but for the first time, it belongs entirely to them. Colt teaches Ayanna how to fix saddles, build fences, and read the landscape like a cowboy. Ayanna teaches him to track silently, to read the wind, to understand the language of birds and shadows. Together, they become something new, neither cowboy nor Apache, but a blend of both worlds. The private vow that binds their souls one night under a sky full of stars. Ayanna approaches Colt. She ties a woven Apache ribbon around his wrist. In my mother's tradition, she whispers, this binds the hearts of those who walk life together. Colt swallows, overwhelmed. He takes a strip of leather and ties it around her wrist. I don't have a tradition like yours, he says softly, so I'll make my own. This means I won't let you go. Not ever. Their foreheads touch. Their hands remain joined. No priest, no elder, no witnesses, just two souls making a vow that neither culture could break.